In this video, we react to episodes 6, 7, and 8 of Season 2 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Welcome back to Eat, Sleep, Nerd. We have the Star Trek-tacular in store for you today as we review and react and to discuss everything of episodes 6, 7, and 8 of Season 2 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I am your dorky DJ, Corey Winter, and joining me, as always, are my nerdy friends, Christian James and Jason Summer.
Glad to be here.
I am here.
Oh, no, okay. And Josh is not here. This is all his idea. He wanted to do a 3-episode spectacular, but he didn't show up, so it's just us.
It's
just us.
It's not his fault. But it's
you know what? Don't diminish yourself, Corey. It's not just us. It is us.
Oh,
it's all of us.
It's one of us. All of us? One of us. One of us. Anyway. Okay.
Anyway. Okay. So, Jason, we're going to be relying on you as our Star Trek lifelong fan.
I mean, I don't want to do this anymore because I could get called out, by our fans.
Well, that's fine. Could we accept criticisms here?
Yeah, if you have criticisms for Jason,
criticisms are
comments.
Fine. Criticisms are fine.
If Jason says something stupid, please let us know in the comments below.
No means know everything, but if you do, let us know.
Good Lord.
So we do want to talk about these recent 3 episodes. So episode 6, Lost in Translation. Episode 7, The Old Scientists, or Those Old Scientists.
These are those old scientists, yeah.
Those old scientists. Yeah. And episode 8, Under the Cloak of War. So the reason we're doing 3 episodes in one video, which is not typical for us. Typically, we just do 1 episode per video. Obviously, we just missed last week. We had to take a day off. So we missed episode 6 when it aired. But then there was a surprise drop of episode 7, the crossover with Lower Decks, that aired a whole 5 days earlier than it was supposed to because of whole San Diego Comic-Con hype or whatever. So that kind of threw us off a little bit. So here we are with 3 episodes in one.
Right. And we're going to try and keep this as a normal length episode for our review. So
we're going to hit the highlights.
We're going to try
of each one. Yeah.
We do it for you.
Yeah. So let's just dive right in. Let's just go ahead and raise the flag. We got some spoilies inbound. Set phasers to spoilers or something. I don't know.
Wow. Keeping that forever.
We'll do a full photon spoiler spread.
There you go.
A new t-shirt for the store.
Right.
All right. So the first episode, we're just going to go in order, obviously. So we're going to start with episode 6. And if you have not, for some reason, seen all of these episodes, I'll have chapter markers in the description so you can skip around. But if you're somehow watching these out of order, I'm not sure how you're doing that or why you're doing that. But whatever, it's up to you. You live your life.
You're a madman. Or a woman.
He's a madman.
So let's start with episode 6 of season 2 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Lost in Translation. So just going right into this, these were 3 very different episodes.
Yes.
We had the mystery episode where we're not sure what's causing all the issues. We had the very lighthearted comedic episode, and then we had the action-packed dramatic episode where some heavy stuff happened. So it was a whiplash of emotions if you watch these back to back like I did. So,
yes.
So starting with Lost in Translation, this was the one with the synopsis of Uhura seems to be the only one who can hear a strange sound that seems to trigger terrifying hallucinations. Hallucinations. Thank you.
Hallucinations.
I put a little too many syllables in there. So this was another episode where we got another look at Captain Kirk, played by, what is it, Wesley. Is that right? Paul Wesley. I knew that was in there somewhere. Yeah. So it was yet again another character-centric episode where it was focused mostly on Uhura and Captain Kirk. So overall thoughts about this episode?
It's very interesting. The way these episodes have been coming out, it's changed the tone of each episode every time. And I kind of love it. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of like a slight horror, especially with what was going on.
There was some creepy stuff happening.
Yeah.
Like pretty early in the episode when she hallucinates for the first time, you see this scary monster.
Yeah.
And that was creepy.
The makeup team during this was excellent.
Yeah.
What was Hammer?
Yeah, Hammer showed back up.
Yep.
in a terrifying way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. He's actually
Zombie Hemmer.
Yeah, he actually showed up a couple of times throughout these 3 episodes. I believe. Maybe it's just that one episode. I'll watch them all together, so I don't know. They all went together. But yeah, so Jason, thoughts about this episode?
This was a very formulaic Star Trek episode.
In a good way or a bad way?
It was good in that it was very much a Star Trek episode. I kind of really missed, like, last season. One of the really wonderful things about Strange New Worlds is that it felt very familiar, but it felt so fresh and so new, and it felt very upbeat and very positive, and it really recaptured a lot of wonderful things from the Star Trek in the 90s time frame, original series type stuff from the 60s. So it was too predictable for me to make it stand out as an episode, though. Like, it was a good episode, and it was very formulaic. It was very Star Trek, but like, as soon as she started hearing the sounds, I kind of knew she was going to be the only one that could hear it, and that it was somebody trying to communicate with Hora in some way, and that they were going to figure it out. Like, I knew that was going to be the overall premise for this episode.
And you're really thinking about it. They've done it a couple of times this season.
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah. So, I mean, but it was nice. I mean, overall, I enjoyed it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, it's fine. I enjoyed the mystery of it.
Yeah.
And I liked seeing a good bit of Kirk again, because I like who was playing him. I think he does a really great job of playing Kirk. That was really great casting, in my opinion. But no, and then we got a little reunion between him and Noonien Singh, which was not really a reunion for him, but it was for her. So it's nice that was kind of coming back around, which is kind of a different thing in this season than last season, where we do actually have quite a few overarching storylines that keep popping up from episode to episode, which we didn't get a lot of in the first season.
And maybe that's partially because there wasn't anything to overarch from, because it was new.
True.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. But I guess as we're getting to know these characters more, you can't just brush off things that, significant things that happen, and just, you don't have to worry about it ever again. That, I guess, would be unrealistic in expectations.
It was cool. Like, I think the next 2 episodes were sort of connected together. Because, and like when they do like the previously on Star Trek Strange New Worlds,
right?
Yeah,
it's usually like an episode that was like an episode or 2 ago, but it went right back to back, sort of, even though the stories were different. So I kind of like that.
Okay, yeah, and it also tied back into, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but it tied back into the first episode this season.
Yeah.
So any other takeaways from this episode 6? We got to see actually Spock and Kirk, their first meeting ever,
which was actually a really nice moment.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
No, what else? Anything else?
Well, I mean, it's pretty cut
it was
and dry.
Say what?
It's pretty cut and dry. Like, stuff happened. Nothing that, I guess it was really self-contained.
Yeah.
I guess as most Star Trek stories are. I
think one of the really wonderful points that came out of this episode is, so in the episode, they're in a nebula which houses some particular element which is extremely beneficial to travel for Starfleet and for the Federation, and they were going to start using this nebula as a jump-off point for further exploration of the galaxy. And it turns out that in this nebula there were entities that were getting trapped in the nacelles, and that were basically being tortured by the systems that the starships use for propulsion. And those are the entities that were trying to reach out to Uhura to get them to stop, and they were using visual aids and auditory aids to try to convey what they needed to, and it was making her feel like she was going insane, but they finally figured it out.
Yeah.
So there were 2 things that happened. One was, even though she was the only one who could hear and see these issues, Captain Pike trusted her.
I'm so glad you said
Yes.
it, because I was thinking the exact same thing. Captain Pike
Yeah.
is such a great leader because he always has trust in his crewmates.
Mhm.
Like even as crazy as it sounded, he knew that there was something that she believed was wrong, and so he believed her.
Yeah. And she,
He's always like that.
it was a conversation like, even though it wasn't said, she was like, I'm staking my career on this. And he's like, I'm staking my, the Federation on this. Are you sure? And it's like, yes. So when she told him that they needed to not only uh, get rid of the element that's in that they had collected for their for the Enterprise, but they actually couldn't use that nebula anymore. So it was kind of a big deal. Um, and the other point is that as the Federation, they realized that they could not continue to hurt those entities, and so instead of turning a blind eye to what they would be doing if they continued to use that element, and if somebody's going to hang me for not using it, but whatever the name is, I can't remember the name of it. I'm not a good Star Trek nerd, I guess. Anyway, they, in true Federation fashion, they said, okay, we can't use this, and we're going to move on. Like they were willing to go ahead and to just to to not use words to just not use that nebula as a platform anymore. Even though it would have been extremely important and vital to the new jumping off point for further space exploration, but they pulled it back simply to save an entity that's barely there. I guess would be the best way to say it.
Yeah. And I was probably gonna leave this point out, but but saying all that with how the story like panned out and how they figured it out, I was like, oh, there's like beings within this that we're trying to use, and I was like, really? Like it almost seemed kind of cheesy to me, especially the way they figured it out and stuff like that. And it was like, oh, we can't do this because there's living beings and that's our thing, not to hurt things, blah blah. I was like, oh God.
But very Star Trek. Like there have been similar episodes to this in the past, where like one entity, like there's some mining operation in the Next Generation, and the mining operation is hurting these microscopic creatures, and they take over the mining operation equipment and start killing people because they're protecting themselves. And Data has to figure out, it's either Data or Geordi figures out what's going on, and they stop the mining operations because they're going to stop hurting the entities. So this is very Star Trek.
Okay, that's good.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
I have no other thoughts, so let's go ahead and score this one. So as a reminder, because this is a relatively episodic show, we do score each episode individually, and then just for comparison purposes, we average everything together to give us an overall score for the entire season as a whole. So for episode 6, Lost in Translation, Jason, what are you giving it?
I'm going to give this one a 4.
Okay.
4 to 5.
Okay. I'll give it... You know what? I'll give it a 4. It's not going to be a standout episode for me going forward, but it was still solid.
It's a solid Star Trek episode.
It's a really solid episode, especially compared to these other 2 episodes we're going to talk about that really stood out for me. So this is going to be a 4. Yeah. Christian.
Yeah, same. 4.
Okay, cool.
Like you said, didn't really stand out. And I know it's really like a small nitpick, but the ending made it drop for me.
Wait, what was the ending?
What we just talked about.
Oh, okay.
That they left the nebula and couldn't use it anymore.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Now, I know we're trying to move on from this real quick, but I did want to say they finally brought Carol Kane's chief engineer character back in.
True.
And addressed her as the new engineer, replacing Hemmer, and how all the officers and people who knew Hemmer before were dealing with that. And seeing her, how she addressed it as a kind of acknowledging, like, yeah, I get it. You're having problems with me. It's fine.
And apparently fine. Hemmer, did she mention that Hemmer was actually her student?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, I thought that was a nice touch with everything else going on.
Yes, I agree. All right, so let's move into our next episode, which is episode number 7, Those Old Scientists. This is the one we have been looking forward to because we just didn't know how they were going to pull it off. It was the crossover episode between Star Trek Strange New Worlds and Star Trek Lower Decks, which is an animated show.
Right.
So I thought it worked. I thought it was cool because they brought in the animated characters into live action using their actual voice actors. So Jack Quaid and I should have already had that pulled up. Jack Quaid and who is she? Who are you?
Tawny Newsome.
Yes, who plays Mariner on Lower Decks. So they actually brought those two voice actors from Lower Decks into live action to play their live action counterparts. So right off the bat, the episode opens actually with a segment from just Lower Decks. And that kind of leads into getting them sucked through a portal into live action where they actually go back in time. They time travel through this portal to actually meet up in Pike's period of time. So I thought it was great. I thought it was awesome.
I mean, yeah, I just love Jack Quaid. Like, even you can just see his dad in his face and the way he acts and stuff. And it's so good. But like him being his own person is always so good. He can act in anything. And I saw him first in The Boys.
Yeah.
And him going from that to this is amazing. And of course, Josh has been gushing over Lower Decks for like a long time.
It's a good show.
So that's another one I need to check out.
Yeah, I've watched all of that one. Yeah.
Which one was this?
Lower Decks.
Yes, Lower Decks.
The entire
is great.
show.
Yes, love it. Yeah, that's great.
So the synopsis: an accident while investigating a time portal sends ensigns Beckett Mariner and Bradward God, so many syllables. Boimler through time from the 24th century, and Captain Pike and his crew must get them back where they belong before they can alter the timeline. So, Jason, thoughts?
How about we start with Christian this time? I took it, or you? I took it first last time.
I mean, my thoughts are, I like the episode where, okay, so it's basically every time travel plot out there.
There's been a good bit of time travel this season.
Yeah,
I think so far has been at least 3 episodes, maybe 4. So,
and I love like the callbacks was like, don't do anything to change your timeline because all your friends and family could die, blah blah, or things could be changed and stuff like that. And it was like that added tension of time travel.
But then Boimler just like, yeah, screw that.
Yeah, he's just such a goob that he was just like, I gotta say it. And it was kind of worrying me because he kept running away from number one, and I was like, what's happening? Like, what is she meeting the same fate as Pike? And no. It ended up not being like that, but it was also
having
cool.
a poster of her up in his room.
That's even more
a recruitment poster.
A recruitment poster.
I don't know what you all were thinking.
So you have not seen Lower Decks, correct?
I have not.
And Jason, you have started it?
No,
you've seen all of it.
I think I've seen every episode.
Perfect. So I have too.
Yeah.
So if you're not familiar with Lower Decks, the way they were acting in live action was exactly their characters in animated form. Like the personalities, how awkward Boimler was, how blunt Mariner was. That was their characters, and
spot on.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were able to be their characters, live action versions of their characters, I think is something special.
Yeah,
because often
voice actors look way different.
Yeah. I mean, like Peter Cullen looks nothing like Optimus Prime, so I just don't think that would work.
True. The one that I always think of is H. John Benjamin that voices Bob's Burgers and Archer. Looks nothing like those characters.
I will forever think that H. John Benjamin, like if he actually got in shape like Archer, he would look exactly like him.
You think so?
See,
yeah.
Okay. See, I ran into H.
Redheaded, isn't he?
H. John Benjamin. I ran into first in a series called Home Movies.
Yep.
Oh, he played Coach McGurk.
Yeah.
And in my head, that is who he will always be. Coach
McGurk. So a couple of really cool things I noticed. Obviously, the initial like couple scenes, like the cold open, was Lower Decks, but the title sequence, the title cards were all Lower Decks animated.
Yeah. Oh
style.
yeah. The entire title sequence, that was so cool. I was like grinning ear to ear like
still voiced by
Captain Pike. Hanson Mount.
Yeah.
But honestly, it would have been fine if it was the captain of the Cerritos. It would have made sense for this episode.
Yeah.
It 100%. Actually, I kind of wish they did it now. That would have 100% made sense. Yeah, it was a very fun episode because, well, I mean, okay, all right. Did you notice that the way the characters were like Boimler and what is her name again?
Mariner.
Mariner. Boimler and Mariner, the way that they acted was completely like it was almost like it was a different directing style from Strange New Worlds. Like it was like two
Yes.
different shows happening in the same space.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
and
can
it was
see
a
that.
very interesting sensation. It
Yeah.
almost didn't work for me, but they pulled it off. Like I'm like, it's like it's not meshing, and then it meshed, and it worked.
Well, I think the fact that it wasn't meshing was kind of the point.
Well, maybe not. No, it was almost too much though. It was like
Oh, okay.
it was too different. It's like they were trying to throw two shows in there
Because
instead of
even Pike was like getting visibly upset every
Right.
time Boimler
He was
spoke.
just-
like
That
he was going to
even
confine
brought it
them
up.
to the brig or to their quarters.
Yeah.
Like we're just done.
Yeah, I think it was either Noonien Singh and Erica were talking to each other, and it's like, have you realized they talk to each other weird?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then later on in the episode, Boimler and Mariner was like, don't you realize they talk really slow?
Yes, they did mention that. Like they called out that their talking styles were different. I loved that.
Right. Which is because you have a 30-minute episode versus an hour episode, and you have to talk fast just to get everything done.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
cartoon. Very fun episode. I didn't really know how it was going to work out. I think they explained the time travel. They didn't explain the conversion from cartoon to real life, but I'll allow it.
I kind of think the fact that they were animated was not. It's like not canon. Like in their reality, they are live
Real.
action.
Right.
So I think that's why they kind of did not touch on that, just because.
Well,
it's
they
supposed
kind
to
of
be.
did. Like there were two times that they did. They first when Boimler shows up, he goes, "Everything looks so real,"
True.
or something
True.
like that.
He did.
And then later, as the episode is closing out, the entire Strange New Worlds cast was was animated.
Yeah,
After they
yeah.
drank the
During Pike's
the
birthday party,
Andorian was an Andorian ale
Oh.
or something like that.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
But it was during Pike's birthday party, which he was firmly against having.
Orion. It was Orion ale. That's what it was. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
No, but we did get a touching character moment there, actually, leading into what that final scene ended up becoming. Because the reason that Captain Pike did not want to have a birthday party is because for the first time ever, he is now older than he was when his father died.
Right.
So that was a little touching moment there between him and Boimler and Mariner. I was
Yeah.
not expecting that in a pretty comedic episode.
It was, yeah. And I mean, Strange New Worlds has been good for that, though. I will give it that.
Yeah.
And of course, Pike again dealing with the fact he knows when his life is going to change forever, whether or not
Yeah.
he dies or just continues in some horrible state of existence. Boimler is like, you're trying to run away from these feelings that you're having, but what if once you're gone, nobody else gets, everybody wishes that they had an opportunity to spend time with you,
Yeah.
which I thought was a really good point.
Yeah, it was cool that almost everybody got in the realization about the future, especially with
That's true.
what's her face?
Number one?
Nope.
Uhura?
Yes, Uhura.
Yeah.
She was, yeah. And Mariner were just hyping her up, like, yeah, you're supposed to be like this and that, blah, blah. And then she was having some existential
Yeah.
crisis because she was like, how am I supposed to do that? I'm only 22.
No, yeah. So, having not seen Lower Decks, how did this episode work for you in terms of just these random characters showing up and being completely different personalities from what you're used to in the show?
I mean, without any context, I mean, it didn't really change how I looked at it.
Okay. Was it weird?
No.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
I mean, other than Jack Quaid having purple hair, which I like. I like that touch that they kept that going. Even his eyebrows were purple.
Yeah. Yep.
But I like that.
So I'm looking. I always look through the trivia to see if there's some cool stuff to take away. Um, apparently, when Boimler gets nervous and walks away from number one on the starship, Jack Quaid mimics the way his animated version walks. I didn't notice that. That's funny.
There was a scene where he was running after that Union Singh, and he was running really like cartoonish.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, they're keeping it alive.
Yeah.
I love that.
So no, I can't say enough about this episode. I think it was exactly what I wanted, and honestly, I would love to see some more crossovers between these two series. So maybe next season we'll get another one if it, people liked this one. So, yeah, I loved it. So let's go ahead and score it. Same thing as last time. So episodically, what are we giving this episode? I'm giving it a 5.
Okay.
Jason?
I'm gonna give it a 4.5.
You loser.
Hey,
What brought it down?
Hey. Do not no.
What brought it down?
As you were, Ensign.
What brought it down?
Oh, what brought it down?
Why was it not perfect?
I do think that it took me out of the episode when I was trying to reconcile the two different crew styles. Two different.
Okay.
It was a really fun episode, but it just didn't hit top tier for me like the next one did. So,
all right.
Just saying.
I mean, I kind of
for once, Jason likes the doom and gloom, and I like the lighthearted stuff. What's that about?
Okay, first of all, a 4.5 is not bad.
Whatever.
Pretty good.
It's actually pretty good for Jason.
Come on. I'm sorry that it can't be perfect.
All right, Christian.
I mean, yeah, I kind of feel like Jason. Like, to your point earlier, I was thinking to myself, was like, okay, are they going to bring all of those characters into this real world? And then I was thinking about like, well, maybe that would have been too much.
Yeah.
It was right, just the right amount of like goofy
Crossover. Yeah.
in this sort of pseudo serious show to make it, interesting. But I'm still going to give it like a 4.
Fine. It's fine.
It will be fine.
Okay.
All right, then bringing us to our last episode we're talking about in this video, episode number 8 of season 2, Under the Cloak of War. So Captain Pike and his crew welcome a Klingon defector aboard the USS Enterprise, but his presence triggers the revelation of some shocking secrets. This is a complete opposite episode from the last one, and it'll actually be a complete opposite episode from the next episode, because we know now that episode number 9 of this season is going to be a musical episode. So shoved right in between. Yeah, you haven't heard of that yet? It's going to be a musical. It's going to be the first ever musical.
I want to know how
Star
that would
Trek.
have been if I'd gone into it not knowing. Now, God dang it.
Sorry, they've been putting out trailers for it. It's all over the place.
Okay.
So no, shoved right in between these two seemingly lighthearted episodes is this super dark and dreary, heavy episode that's dealing mostly with M'Benga and Nurse Chapel and their experiences on the war fronts in the Klingon War. So, some heavy stuff happened here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I loved getting the, not necessarily like full backstory, but like a backstory on M'Benga. Because I remember him doing sort of that Fight Club or whatever he was doing, training before.
The Fight Club. Let's just leave it at that. The Fight Club.
With people. And he had some skills. So I was like, where did this come from? I thought he was just a doctor.
Yeah, that is kind of making sense. And also, yet again, going back to the first episode of this season, that storyline that I didn't think was actually going to come back around, where they actually took that super serum potion that makes them super strong.
Yeah.
They hinted at it, that they had taken that before. But I was like, are we going to ever learn when that was? Apparently we are.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that actually came back around.
Yeah, I like that they trusted to tell the story on that. Like they didn't overdo any backstory on the Protocol 12, which is that serum,
The super serum.
the super serum. They left it as something that we could have we all thought it was just like a throwaway thing up to this point, and I like that they did come back to it and explained it without going, oh, hey, remember that last episode? They just trusted that we would make the connection, which I like a lot.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I mean, not a lot of big takeaways except for all the revelations right there at the end of the episode. So let's just go ahead and talk about that big stuff. So we learned about the Butcher of Jagal. So that was the big battle planet that they were held down on. So that's where actually Nurse Chapel and M'Benga met for the first time. It was in that war front. And the legend has it that there was a Butcher of Jagal that killed all of these soldiers, these Klingon soldiers. And the story goes that it was actually the general that's now defecting, which we meet in this episode. He's coming on board the Enterprise as an ambassador. The war stories were that he was the Butcher of Jagal, but kind of find out the twist at the end was actually it was M'Benga who killed a bunch of freaking people.
He went John Wick.
He went John Wick style after taking the Protocol 12 drug. So that kind of changes things with M'Benga. That changes his character pretty dramatically.
Yeah, pretty hard.
Yeah.
To go back just a tiny bit.
What you got?
You were talking about revelations. I was noticing throughout the whole episode, no one could take those subtle cues from literally everyone. Like I wanted Pike to do something other than just let stuff happen, and people just try to like calm themselves down.
Well, Pike had a job to do.
I mean, yeah, I understand that. Like he had to be the welcome wagon.
Yeah.
But if you're seeing that your crew is so uncomfortable with this situation, let's not force things. In which we learned, we saw how far that went. Like maybe he the ambassador was just like, hey, I'd love to get in the ring with you. Pike could have been like, no,
probably not the best idea.
No, let's not do that. Or like show up and it's been like, we're not going to do this. Or like monitor the situation. But he let stuff happen. And I'm not saying that it's entirely his fault, but he definitely let people sit in their emotions way longer than they should have, which resulted in.
I think you have a valid point. But at the same time, I think early on in the episode, he basically was saying, you're Starfleet. I'm going to trust you to do what you need to do while this is going on.
Yeah.
He did take number one's recommendation to shorten the route.
Thing shorting.
Yeah.
And he did eventually tell Dr. M'Benga, hey, go help Nurse Chapel because I see you're about to lose your tricorder on this guy.
Yeah, don't sell him short.
I mean, I'm not saying all that. I'm saying he did his due diligence.
Right. And I think I see what you're saying, but I also wonder if it's just Captain Pike respecting his officers enough to trust them to deal with it. Yeah. And then finally him just stepping in like, okay, I've allowed this to go as far as I can. And he finally did.
Yeah. And
I don't know.
It makes for a juicy story. He did what he could in this situation, but then like, I guess that goes along with entrusting his officers to do what they need to do, that we can't, a dead body.
Yeah, so let's go and talk about that.
Right, yeah.
They kind of hid what actually happened behind the medical screen.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think that M'Benga instigated the killing of this Klingon general, ambassador?
I would say not physically, but his inability to wrangle his words in, even though the ambassador was just like, I understand what happened, but I'm trying to change. And when I'm trying to change and what you're doing, it's just going to undo that. And I was like, okay, cool. I'd be like, I'm still mad, but I'll calm down for now and let you leave.
Right.
But it was interesting to like get that block in, and then seeing Nurse Chapel come in and just being like, what's going on?
Awkward. I'm just gonna go the other way.
But it's almost like it could, because he was looking at the knife, right?
I think he definitely did it.
The way he was defending himself, sort of in like such a subtle way, it was like he definitely picked up the knife. But I'm sure like the ambassador was just like trying to get it away from him. So he technically would have not started the fight, but he didn't help it.
I kind of wonder if the Klingon ambassador became kind of almost obsessed to the point of insanity, that he wanted Dr. Mbenga's
Yeah.
forgiveness, essentially, and
Yeah.
his journey towards being at peace with what happened, that he may have actually just gone like kind of crazy on him,
Yeah.
and Mbenga did have to defend himself.
And it's kind of
And
that thing where like someone does such bad things to you,
yeah,
and they want to like repent in a way,
Mm-hmm.
but like are asking you,
There's no
why aren't
forgiveness for
you why aren't you forgiving me?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you have to give me time. And then like before they even had that strong interaction, he was just like, just go away. Like, I don't want to see it. Just go
Yeah,
away.
and he asked him several times to leave. I mean,
Yeah.
he honestly,
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of had it coming, honestly.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. Again, I'm not one who advocates, death and destruction, but it was kind of satisfying too, because he was so patronizing during the entire episode too.
Yeah.
He was like, "I've come to peace with this, and I'm, you should also come to peace with this, and I give you permission to heal," and complete lack of empathy and understanding of what, that there's a different perspective on what happened and what they're, he's wanting forgiveness, and they're like, no, it's not going to happen.
And like
Um,
with Mbega revealing that what he did,
He is the butcher.
he put that on him or Ra to, take on the full brunt of the responsibilities. If he was actually there to reconcile, then he didn't help himself by sticking around.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you're
Oh
both,
no. Yeah.
yeah, we're both mad at this situation, so let me walk away. Actually, so I'm not saying that Mbega did instigate or did start this fight, but I feel like Ra would probably have a bigger hand in it.
I mean, yeah.
I also want to commend the writers on Star Trek, that they're touching on a very sensitive topic in our real world environment, which is PTSD
That's what I was thinking.
and veterans.
Oh man,
What?
can we talk about the PTSD aspect of Mbenga's acting in this episode?
Sure. Yeah.
Like, there were multiple scenes where he is so panicked that, like,
He can't
starts
function.
like he can't function. Like, he starts profusely sweating.
Mhm.
He loses his vision. Like, his heart's pounding. Like, I was kind of worried he was going to like keel over and
I
die.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when he was in the sonic shower. I was like,
Yeah. Him and
This is
both
where we
he
lose
and Nurse Chapel,
Yes,
and
Nurse
then
Chapel
to
as well.
some extent, Ortega,
Who
had
we
to-
found out was apparently a war hero as well, which was
Right.
new information.
Mhm.
So anyway, go on. I just wanted to mention that.
So what we had in this was the dichotomy of people who have been to war in leadership positions. I'm sorry, who had not been to war in leadership positions, and having to make these decisions and making calls that involve veterans of wars who may or may not be suffering from PTSD. Now, I'm not saying that in any way that this episode of Star Trek even, it just barely scratches the surface of dealing with that entire discussion. But it made a really good point that people who have not been to war cannot probably fully comprehend what people who are going through PTSD are going through, and there may not ever be a reconciliation of ideologies when people are having conversations. It just may not ever happen because the experiences are not shared, and it's one of those things that it's just too different. And I thought it was a really good way that they touched on that idea, which is something that we in our real lives can take into consideration.
oh, sure.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
I probably couldn't have.
No. So aside from just the character revelations of Mbenga actually having a pretty dark past in the war, that's really the whole point of the episode. So not a lot of other big key takeaways I want to talk about. So let's go ahead and score it.
Yep.
And then we'll wrap this sucker up. So after episode number 8, I got to give it a 5. I mean, how do you not? How do you not? Jason, how do you not? It better be a 5.
Hang on. You I've got to figure out what this thing is called real quick. Christian,
Let's
you do
see.
yours. Hang on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I really liked this episode a lot. It was
Heavy.
gritty like sandpaper. I'm gonna give it 5 physical heart pumps out of 5.
Oh God. I thought we were going to get all the way through this without talking about that. Oh, that freaked me out.
Yeah,
I had to look away. Oh God.
when they were like playing in that dude's chest.
Okay, playing's a weird choice
Yeah,
of words.
this is a pretty visceral episode. There was a lot of
Oh yeah.
And
blood.
Benga said, "Grab his heart and start pumping." And I almost lost it because they kind of showed it, and I'm just like,
yeah.
no.
Well,
That
never
was-
mind the knife that went through the guy's head.
Oh yeah, that too.
See, I don't even remember
Yeah.
that. I was too stuck in the heart thing.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, pretty visceral, relatively graphic episode.
I loved it.
But yeah,
Okay.
Christian was a 5. Jason.
Jason's giving it 5 bloody ducks out of 5.
That sounds made
So
up.
that's what he was looking up. All right.
Yes, it was.
All right. So obviously we have not changed Josh's score because he has not been here. He hasn't actually been here since I think episode 4. So he's missed a good bit, unfortunately, as our big Star Trek fan. So he's actually been scoring at 5s across the board. So we'll just leave his as a 5.
I think
so
that's
yeah. It's a safe bet. Yeah.
yeah.
So with our updated scores for season 2, we are now giving this a 4.63 across the board after 8 episodes of season 2, with 2 more to go.
Sounds pretty spot on.
Still a super solid episode or season. So episode number 9 is going to be a musical that has been confirmed, and then episode 10 apparently they're keeping pretty secret, so something pretty heavy might happen.
That Gorn thing better pay off from the first episode. Just saying.
It's got
Oh,
it's got to be
yeah.
that, right?
It's gotta be
gotta
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. Any final thoughts as we wrap this up, fellas?
Yes.
We got 2 more weeks.
I have a thought.
Yeah.
Oh,
Not
good.
one of you have said anything about my new Starfleet uniform.
Oh, I didn't know it was different.
I didn't notice.
Oh.
Josh
This is
Josh
the
would
next
have
generation one.
would have noticed.
Yeah,
Oh, right on. Yeah, that
Oh,
was
well.
Josh. Yes. But I was gonna say, too, that once Ra got on the ship,
Mhm.
I was like, oh, cool. We get to see some Klingon backstory, or like further delving into Klingons as a whole.
Yeah.
Because I've always been interested about, especially watching Next Generation, and I was like, I just want to know more about them and how, especially one of them got on to Starfleet.
No, Worf. Yeah, man. Love
Yeah.
Worf. You know, speaking of that, there's an important connection. I don't know why they didn't touch on it more. So Spock has now been part of 2 diplomatic initiatives involving the Klingons. So the first one, apparently, on the timeline is this episode that we watched, where a Klingon ambassador was involved in kind of securing peace with the Federation and some other organization. Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. Spock leads the initiative to create a peace treaty with the Klingons, which is kind of the entire drive of that movie, which was an excellent movie.
Okay.
Just an interesting tie. I don't know if it's going to come up that maybe one inspired the other, but I did not want to let that go unmentioned.
Nice. All right. Thank you. Thank you for the
You're very
knowledge.
welcome.
All right, that wraps us up for this episode of our Star Trek Strange New World Season 2 reaction videos. We have 2 more to go. Hopefully Josh is back next week to shed all of his Star Trek nerdiness out on us. Before you leave, make sure you click that subscribe button, that like button. Go leave some comments, because I'm sure you got some things to say if you're watching this video. And go watch some other videos on our channel, youtube.com/EatSleepNerd. And also go check out our Secret Invasion reaction videos. We just wrapped up that entire season. And then also just keep tuning in.
Yeah, we're going to be around for a while. Share. Let everybody know about us. Hey, if you know somebody famous, let them know about it and let them share it on their page. I mean, seriously. I mean, if somebody's got some followers, get them to share it, please. We need to get these numbers up. People are missing some good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have really good opinions.
Right, and they're right. They're all correct. Even when they're conflicting, they're correct.
Thank you for tuning in. In the meantime, keep nerding out.